Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Supergirl. So in this episode taking place right after the Flash/Supergirl crossover last week, we have Kara and Mon-El back together again. It seems like everything's kind of settled down. They're actually in a very good spot where he's actually cooking breakfast for her and everything, which is like awfully sweet because he's like trying to be all romantic and everything. But then it takes a turn when you find out that basically there's been a bounty put on Kara's head. And obviously Mon-El, and much like myself, like the first person that came to his head is like his parents. Well, she brings his parents in and asks them and everything, but they're like, no, we're not going to hurt the people that are close to you, your friends and stuff like that. We want you back because it's like we spent so much time thinking you were gone and then finding out you're alive and everything. We were just excited and we love you and we just wanted to have you back. But it's like we're not going to jeopardize anyone that you care about for that sake because you are our son. And even though we may not agree and like the things that happen or you're doing, but at the very least you're our son. So we're not going to hurt someone that you care about, obviously. Which turns out later on as it gets revealed, that's 100% a lie because it turns out the person behind this was Mon-El's mom. Which, interesting enough, I like how it was settled because for one, I like that dude. He's like a telepath. Basically, he can control people with his mind. Obviously, he took control of Mon-El and made him fight Kara. That was not good. But I like the fact is that him and John kind of had a mind battle. Both of them, like, when they're using their powers, John's eyes glow red. And then, obviously, this dude's eyes glow blue. Obviously, the whole comparison. Which is so interesting. I wonder why that specific. I mean, I guess to be fair, it's kind of the same thing with Kara and them. Because, obviously, like, when you look at more, like, you know, different versions. Because to me, the more modern Superman stuff is the only ones that's ever used like blue. Like Kara and Clark's heat ray vision is more bluish in this series. Obviously, the same thing applies to like Superman in the DC movies as well. I mean, at least, you know, Man of Steel and like Batman v Superman, but it was a situation where it's like more often it's always been red. Obviously, when their eyes start heating up at first, you see kind of that orangish red, but I've always seen his, like, especially in the older like 90s animated series, it was like pure red. So it's just kind of interesting to me. I guess so that's also another comparison. I was just thinking because I was like, it's like interesting that a good guy would have red eyes, but then I'm like, then I was going to compare them, but I was like, oh yeah, technically their heat vision is bluish, but like I said, it's at the same time, it's like very reddish. I mean, representing the heat and everything. Nevertheless, that's beside the point. I just thought it was kind of badass seeing that kind of mental war going on. Obviously, we didn't get to see what happened, but like John did a number on him because he's just like and messed up. But man, oh man, like his mom doing that, it just blows his mind and everyone else's mind, which Mon-El was kind of like, yeah, he's like, for a second, I really believed that they wouldn't have anything to do with this, but it turns out they did. Basically, Kara got him to be like, hey, you need to talk to your mom. Tell her that everything's okay. That the fact is, being optimistic is like, give her a chance. She'll, because Mon-El's kind of like, my mom won't change, but she's like, no, give her a chance. She could possibly prove you wrong, which they had a meeting, which in fact, she admits like, yeah, I did it, and pulls out two kryptonite Psi and end up attacking Kara, which Mon-El's like, no, don't hurt her. I'll go home. I'll go back with you. Just don't hurt her, which obviously you find out his dad knew nothing about. But for Kara, she's so desperate to get him because it's like, no, Mon-El's only there because he sacrificed himself, not only for me, but also because I'm the one that put him in that position at first because I told him to talk to his mom. He didn't want to, and I pushed him. So it's like, because for Mon-El, like, he wants to go back. Like, sure, Daxam is his home and everything, but Earth has become his home. It's just the same thing as John and Kara. It's still the situation of technically you have a home to go back to. It needs to be rebuilt and everything. But still, it's a situation that, it comes up in conversation with his dad later on. Because basically it kicks in that basically everyone on Earth that he spends time with, some of the people that came to save him too, whether it be John or Kara or Wynn, that they are like family to him. It's a situation where he's kind of caught between two families, But for like his dad's like, oh, push all this aside and everything. The fact is that you you are the prince and Daxam, and it's like, oh, the fact is you're our son, so we love you. We just go back home. And he's like, okay, I will go back home, but at the very least, we got to make some changes. Like, make it so that the people have a voice in everything, which his dad is like, that's stupid. Why does their voices matter? Daxam has been led this way for 1,000 years. Why do it now? Which I beg the argument of, like, just because it's been run like that for 1,000 years doesn't mean that it works. Doesn't mean it's the right way to lead, because I'm sure, because it's kind of leading with an iron fist. Like, in a situation, it becomes less like a monarchy and more like a dictatorship, where it's like you flaunt your power and you rule that way. Like, you don't let your people speak, it's like, cause even then it's like the system of like, you treat your people like they're lower than anything. Like, what matters to them and what's important to them doesn't matter. That only thing that matters is that your reign stays supreme, that you live the life that you want to. It's like, cause it's like, there's no like sway in it. It's not, for them, it's not even about politics. It's just like, literally like, oh, let's go back to being king and queen and you being the prince. But it's like, what does that exactly mean? Like, what does that mean for our people? It's like, they haven't brought up like, oh, our people will be fine and everything. It's like, no, I'm sure there's plenty of people who've never liked the way things were done. It's like, let's talk to our people, compromise essentially, find out what it is they want, what we can as rulers do for them. But it's like, the dad was a little more willing to hear it. His mom wasn't. His mom straight up locked him up in a prison for that sake. Which I did like the line when Winch showed up and, had Monel being like, aren't you a little short to be a stormtrooper? He's like, you saw the movie. You finally saw Star Wars. Just kind of a nerd out moment. And then also just like a fight in general. I did like the twist of like it being John that showed up first to fight. I was like, at first, like, the kryptonite dagger didn't work. I was like, wait, why didn't it? Oh, is she wearing something? Oh, because and then he's like, oh, that's not going to work. It's like, is that? Yep. It turned out to be John disguises her, which Carr later on shows up too. What I thought was kind of crazy. I don't know if that's going to turn out to be something or not. Probably not. It was just kind of for the sake of the episode. But Mana ends up shooting out the window. Everyone grabs onto something as the air is being sucked, as like a vacuum is being created. What I thought was kind of interesting, you see one dude flying out, and at the same time, one, if not both, of the kryptonite daggers actually stab into him. It's like, why didn't you could have easily just shown them flying out at the same time, like, oh, they get sucked into space. It's like, no, you made sure that they flew into the guy as he was being sucked out into space. I was like, that sucked. Granted, like I said, I don't know if it was both of them, but at least one of them did. Which, to me, like, I'm wondering, like, could it be something later on was like they retrieved those daggers as why it's like, oh, we know they were out there, so we got them back? Or is it because he's going to come back? Because, I'm curious to see, like, if anything else does that. Because, that was a thing in Smallville. I know I suck. I constantly pull from Smallville, but I can't help it. That's kind of like the biggest, like, Superman reference I can pull from. But, like, a lot of times, kryptonite would give people powers, and I'm wondering, is that what that could be alluding to? But to me, that's part of my brain, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't think that, granted, I don't know. I always assumed that was just a Smallville thing. I don't think that it popped up in any other comic books. I could be wrong, or any other media. It might just been solely a Smallville thing, but nevertheless, that popped up in the back of my mind. But at the same time, I was like, it's supposed to be a clear signal of like, yeah, they're out in deep space, stuck in some dude's stomach or chest or whatever. So, which his dad is kind of like, this is Monel's family, and like, I respect your wishes. Which Monel's kind of like, I love you guys. I'm glad to know that you're alive, but this will be the last time we meet, because he's kind of, It's a very sad situation, because it's like he loves his parents, but he's not going to go with them if they're going to be so unreasonable. But it does seem like for him that he looks at it very positively, because he's like, at the very least, his dad's a little more open-minded about it, that he's happy because Carl was right. Because the fact is that, if he sees hope, because it's like, yeah, because Carl was apologizing about his mom's situation, which is like, no, my dad obviously changed. He knew how much staying here on Earth meant to me. So it's like, if he can change, obviously my mom can too. Just got to give it time. I love the fact that he kept referencing Romeo and Juliet, because he read the play, but he hasn't read all of it. And he was like, oh, we can run off together and be happy like Romeo and Juliet. He brought up the fact that he had finished. He's like, yeah, you do know that at the end of it, they die. And Monel's like, wait, what? Man, that's a turn I didn't see. Because when you actually break it down, it just, because Romeo and Juliet's that story that everyone, you'd assume it would have a happy ending, but then it's just kind of that 180 of like, what? They both die? That's messed up. True love should triumph. But then, Car's just being like, you really need to finish that play. So I thought it was just a little sweet thing there. But then you had that twist that I just didn't see coming, where it's like at the end, like Monel's mom stabs stabs his dad. I don't know, maybe kills him. It seems like it might have killed him. Because, like, in her mind, she's like, oh, you betrayed me. You know, for him, he's like, no, like, you know, back in Daxon, the most thing that would come important, most thing that would matter most is the happiness of someone. It's like, our son is happy here. So it's like, oh, we can go back and, you know, just go back to our world and rebuild it. But for her, it's like, no, she's like, you betrayed me. We made a pledge to each other that when we came together, we were getting married. You put, you know, I'd be by your side and what I say would matter, and that basically, you know, for the sake of our family, that would matter. But then it's like, oh, now you've betrayed me. And it's like, wow. To those extremes, and now she's like, oh, I'm not done with Earth. So basic question, like, obviously she did that to her husband, and obviously Monel means a lot to her. That's why she's doing all this. But at the same time, it's like, I really legitimately believe, given the opportunity, who's to say she won't do the same thing for Monel? Because I think in her mind kind of had a mental break, because it's like, she feels like she's being rejected by her family, first by her husband, because it's like, oh, you're supposed to be by my side. Once again, kind of pushing that dictator like thoughts I had, but just kind of like in a mentality of like, if you don't agree with me, you're wrong. I'm in the right. You're wrong. It's like, you're my son. You should be by my side, because that's rightfully where a son should be. Everyone should agree with me. You know, and it's like, for one, I was like, I can understand. She has a mother's concern and everything. You know, Monel's her little baby boy, and she wants him back. And it's like, she thought he was dead, and now finding out he's alive, she doesn't want to go anywhere without him. So it's like, I understand that. I was like, okay, so at the very least, there's some compassion behind. Like, obviously, she's going about it in a very twisted way, but at least there's some compassion. But now it begs the question, is it for the sake of wanting to look strong? Because if her and her, I guess maybe it's a sense of mentality that if they don't have the entire family there, then they look weak or not, they look divided. So the Daxam royal family isn't as strong as it could be, like, to keep up some strong front. So, but like, that's the only way I can understand why she did what she did. Like, it just comes down to the fact is she doesn't like no as an answer. She feels like anyone kind of making a decision that she doesn't agree with, that she can't, because she feels like she's being backstabbed and abandoned by the people that she cares about, and her husband and her son. So it's like, I'm legitimately scared for Monel's say, and especially for Kara's, because for her, she's like, maybe she'll look at Monel and be like, you're no longer my son anymore, and try and kill him, and then blame Kara for it, be like, I had to do this to my son because of you. You infected him. So that's where my mentality about that is. I was not expecting that. I was like, when she started talking like that, I was like, is she about to, please tell me. And I mean, I was like, okay, she stabbed him, but he's still okay, right? And then he kind of passes out, so I don't know whether he's dead or not, but he's laying on the floor, and it's like, holy crap, is that, like, how are you going to explain? I mean, granted, it's a situation where she is the queen, so for them, it's kind of like the mentality, I guess, that, no, we can't question the queen's rule. She decided to kill him, then we have no choice. Because you can't necessarily blame them, because they were a long way off the ship, and everyone saw them leave. So not unless she tries to twist it around and be like, oh my god, they came back and killed my husband, the king, which totally possible. She seems, obviously, as we've seen, she seems very manipulative, and it's so sad, because it's like she acts like there's something wrong with Monel the way he is. So that does beg the question, like, how did they rule beforehand? Like, I don't, you know, Monel was kind of ignorant. He kind of went about life kind of being oblivious to everything that was going on, because this was his life and he accepted that. So it does make you think, like, more of the decisions were made by the king and the queen, but then it's like, how did they rule? Because obviously we see the king have a change of heart, but maybe the king wasn't always the person we see before him. Obviously, it took a little while for Monel's message to kind of get across, because he's like, oh, let's leave this all behind. The fact is, I get that you care about this woman, but, you know, even his mom thinking this whole thing with Kara is just a tryst. It's like, your son's in love. Shouldn't that count for something? Which I said, like I said, the dad was more willing to accept, but the mom was. I wonder why. Maybe it'll be something we end up finding out in their past or whatever, but it's just, you know, it makes you wonder, does her hate for Kryptonians run so deep that she just isn't willing to accept it? It's like, my son isn't going to be with some filthy, thick-headed, pretentious, you know, Kryptonian or something like that. I don't know. But like I said, interesting twist, and I'm very interested to see where that goes, especially what it means with the whole Linda Carter's character, you know, the president, because obviously through the entire episode she was like, oh, do not get involved with the Daxamites, like the fact is we don't want to start an intergalactic war, which seems like this might be where that might be going. But then because she was basically telling John to back down, but John didn't. Obviously, it's like, they had one of our people. She's like, well, the fact is you will suffer the consequences for this later on. I'll be the one to kind of determine it. Because John obviously was quick to be like, we can't interfere or anything. which is understandable, but at the same time, it's like we had to go get our people. And she's basically like, oh, you're lucky it ended up the way it did, or things could have been a lot worse. Which is kind of interesting because she ended up bringing up the fact that she's like, oh, I found out about this. He's like, oh, how did you know about it? She's like, I have my sources. So it's like, obviously connected. It has to be connected to the fact that she's an alien, because it's like, how, not unless it's part of her powers or something, because it's like, how would you know something like that went down like that? Because they literally rebuilt the portal that went to that slave moving planet to get up there. So it's like, it's not like they took any ships or you saw anybody flying there. It's like, so how would you know about that otherwise? And then she heard about them leaving. They were out of Earth's atmosphere, obviously, or at least their orbit, but they are still somewhat nearby. But then, like, you had the whole. It makes me think, like, maybe there's something more to that. Like, the fact is, she almost has a smile on her face when she's kind of turning into her real form, which is this is the first time us really seeing what she 100% looked like. Because earlier in the series, we got a glimpse of her being an alien, but now we see more of it. Don't know exactly what she is or what she's up to. Hopefully she doesn't have any bad intentions, because the last thing you want, because obviously you still have to worry about Cadmus, and now we have to deal with the Daxams, and now you have to worry about her too. I don't think so. It does seem like she is trying to work everything out, trying to bring peace, but that easily could be a facade too. I wonder how long has she been one for her to be in that position right now? Did she do the same thing as John? Is it a situation where she was like, oh, like, you know, the real person that she's impersonating died and she took their form, or did she just pick this form? I feel like aliens don't just pick their forms like that. I feel like there's a lot more complexity than that. It has to be based on someone real. So maybe she had a similar circumstance with John. Maybe she killed the person that, the human version of who she's pretending to be. Maybe she killed the original human and took her place. Like I said, I hope it's for good reasons. Maybe the person she was originally aligned with, that original person, much like the original Hank Henshaw, super against aliens. So maybe that's a possibility. I'm very interested to see where that goes from here and what that means. Like I said, we get little snippets of that because we haven't seen anything else about that since like her last appearance. So very interested to see what that's about. But I still get the feeling like when it's all said and done, I don't know what the circumstances is. I don't want it to be, but I just can't help but getting that feeling like when it's all said and done, Monel will have to leave. But it was just so sad. It's like you're seeing Kara be like, no, you know, I can't let you go. And it's just like, Monel's like, I'm glad you came and got me. It's like, yeah. It's like I said, I'll bring it up again. I want my superheroes happy and in love. You know, Kara deserves it. You know, Monel deserves it too. It's just like they deserve love. And it's such a beautiful, I get all sappy. I can't help it. And another side story in this episode speaking of love, we have Alex and Maggie being just cute as ever. It's like, oh, we're there. We're totally that couple up here being all like flirty and also going to yoga together. Well, it turns out we end up meeting Maggie's ex, Emily, which obviously was that super awkward meeting. It's like, oh yeah, this is my new girlfriend, Alex. Oh, silence. And it's just like, okay, this is super awkward. You can literally cut the tension with a sword. But Alex is, trying to prove to be the girlfriend. I'm like, I'm cool, yeah, that is your ex. Like, get some closure, hang out with her or whatever. Which even going as far as inviting her out to dinner, it's like, see what happened? See how cool and awesome your girlfriend is? It's just like, oh, like, I get it, like, because, it's to show, like, support. It's to be like, oh, yeah, if you want to hang out with your ex or whatever, like, I understand, like, I trust you, and I'm 100% cool with it, because especially because she's like, oh, I need this especially because Maggie needs it for closure, because Maggie brings up the fact is that Emily didn't show up. It's like, oh, yeah, we were in a relationship for 5 years. It was the most important, like, it was the longest relationship I had up at that point. And the fact of the matter is that she said some pretty vile things to me during our breakup that I'll never be happy again or something like that. And so it's like, I get that you want to give me closure and everything. Which the moment she brought that up, I'm like, there's more to this, isn't there? It's like, I had a feeling. It turns out my feeling was right because we ended up finding out from Emily. Emily's like, she said that? No, our relationship ended because I found out she cheated on me. And it's like, ooh. And then Alex was apologizing and everything. And she was just kind of like, I just wanted to... Emily was just kind of like, I just wanted to kind of forget all about it. And then Alex confronts her later on about it, which is like, I get why Maggie didn't tell her, because for Maggie's mind, it's like if she had told her the truth, it might have put doubts in Alex's mind, because in her mind, it's like, oh, if Alex finds out the truth, she'll be wondering like, well, she cheated on Emily 5 years ago. Who's to say she won't cheat on me now? Which, Alex is like, no, I'm not mad about that. It's like everyone does dumb stuff when they're younger, so I'm not going to hold that against you because you're not the same person. People are constantly evolving and changing. It's like you're not the same person you were 5 years ago. What I'm mad about is the fact is that you lied about it, because this isn't the first time either. It's like she brings it up. It's like you have this pattern. Like you're lying about this, you cheating on Emily. Then you also lied about you coming out to your parents, like the truth behind that. It's like ever since you told your parents the truth and how they felt about that, you've kind of cut yourself off from the people that trust you the most. So she's just basically like, just no, I'm here. You don't have to lie to me. You don't have to hide stuff. I'm here for you. Let me be there for you, essentially. Which was like, I was like, oh, I love it. I was like, that's so cool. That's so sweet. Like, I figured it was a situation where it's like it could be handled, like, just like relationship things going all around, which I love the moment at the end. Maggie and Emily do kind of end some resolve, and Alex helped kind of like gave them both closure and everything, which Maggie's like, Alex is like, yeah, I kind of had to saw that you guys were talking about me at the end there. Maggie's like, yeah, she was saying how pretty lucky I was to have you, and Alex is like, yeah, you are. And I'm like, oh, it's like, dude, stop being so damn cute and adorable, like, stop it. It's like, if I was a Twitter person, I would have said something like hashtag relationship goals. It's like, oh God, I know. I feel like because it's coming out of my mouth, I feel like it sounds so terrible coming out of my mouth. Anyone else's mouth, it'd be fine. I'm sure there's plenty of people who say that hashtag relationship goals for like, just for irony's sake, but still, like, I don't know. They're just so cute and adorable, dude. I'm happy it worked out for them. I mean, granted, obviously not everyone else is so lucky in the relationship department. Obviously, we still have the whole Lyra and Win situation. Still don't know where that stands after last episode, but still, overall, very, very good episode. Like I said, on both sides, I really just like that side story. That was just kind of interesting. Like, kind of getting to some roots about Maggie, kind of like, because Alex even put it too, being like, yeah, I'm glad to see that you're kind of a flawed person, because like I always had this perfect image of you just being the perfect person, so knowing that you're a little flawed makes me feel a little better, just jokingly saying that. Just like, that's so cool. Because we do tend to, like, just from a realistic point of view, we do tend to kind of like make ourselves out to be, or someone that we're not necessarily, just because we're scared that if this person sees the real me, maybe they'll be scared of me. Like in this particular case, like finding out I cheated on someone, because like some people might have the mentality that once a cheater, always a cheater. But the fact of the matter is that was like a long time ago. So, I mean, granted, I said 5 years ago, like the relationship was 5 years long, but it doesn't mean that happened 5 years ago. But still, it's just like everyone makes their mistakes in their past, and it's like, I can't hold you accountable. Like, I shouldn't like hold your past against you in something like that. Like I said, once again, reiterating, you're a different person, than you were then. So, but with these new developments, I am very interested to see where we go down next episode. I did almost forget, but I will note that, letting you know, there is no episode next week. The Supergirl is going on a little break and will be returning April 24th. So letting you know that, so in case you're looking for it in the next coming week. So. But really, that's all I want to talk about. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.